This is a quick video showing the knit stitch and the purl stitch. I've already cast on using my double twisted loop cast on, and I have a separate video for that. And I'm going to do this with the yarn in my right hand, which is also called throwing. You hear it called American style, but it's not the only style done in the United States, which of course are not all of America. So I'm shifting away from using that language and calling it throwing, which is more descriptive. So for my first stitch, I'm going to hold the needle with all the stitches in my non-dominant hand, empty needle in my dominant hand, and I'm going to insert my dominant needle, which for me is to my right, into the stitch from front to back. So I'm going into this loop. And I hold on with my left hand here, and my right hand is going to wrap the yarn counterclockwise. So it goes behind everything and then between the needles to cause a new wrap on my back needle here. That needle is going to keep in contact and slide down the other needle. It helps to hold on, drawing out that loop that I wrapped. And last step is that the old stitch slides off the back needle here, which is your non-dominant hand. And then again, I'm going to go into my stitch from front to back, wrap my yarn counterclockwise around the back needle. That needle slides down the other needle out towards me, and then I push the old stitch off. Front to back into the next stitch, wrap the yarn counterclockwise, slide down and out of that stitch, drawing the new wrap through, and then push the old stitch off. And just go right into the next stitch. Resist here to stop and kind of yank your needles apart because that'll create a loose spot here. Into the next stitch, front to back. If it's a little hard, just take a few turns, tries. Sometimes your yarn starts splitting. This first row is the hardest. Into your stitch, wrap your yarn, out of the stitch, take it off that other needle. Into the stitch, wrap your yarn, come back out of that stitch, and take it off your needle. So every loop that had been on my left hand needle is now getting replaced by a loop on my right needle drawn through it. And eventually you end up with an empty needle, and you switch hands, turning the work around. Now, people often get a little worried that they have this big loose loop here. It's totally fine, and if you just keep going and deal with the loops on the needle, you'll be fine. Sometimes people will do something like this to make it look better, but that turned one loop into two, and you'd end up increasing. So resist the urge, know it's going to be taken care of as you keep going. So same thing as before, into the stitch, wrap your yarn, out of the old stitch and take it off the needle, into the stitch, wrap your yarn, out of the old stitch, take it off the needle. And again, it's a little loose and funny underneath this stitch. Don't worry, it will take care of itself. See how it's not loose and funny at this side anymore? Now I'm going to switch over to purling, which is a little bit opposite, but some things are similar. So for purling, I want to make sure that my needle is behind the yarn, and my needle now is going to go from back to front. I'm going to pick up the yarn, making sure I pick it up in the front. I'm still wrapping counterclockwise, and it's still going around my dominant hand, which is going to use my right hand needle, which is now in the front. So again, the wrap goes like this. And then to exit, I need to kind of go out away from me and upwards to exit. And I've got a new loop here, and the old one's going to get pulled off. So in from back to front, wrap counterclockwise around your front needle, which then swings out and up. So away from you and up, and the old stitch comes off. In back to front, wrap counterclockwise around your front needle, and this swings away from you and up, and you take the old stitch off. Similar to knit stitch, but just a little different. Now there's no end to how you can combine these stitches. There are whole books on lots of different stitch patterns. I'm going to do another row of purl to demonstrate that. And 2 rows of knit and 2 rows of purl is one option where you get sort of a sideways corrugation, which can be fun. So I'm going to make sure that the yarn is in front of my needle, go in from back to front. Be sure I pick it up in the front. You don't want to wrap it around because you get an extra wrap here. Wrap counterclockwise, and then go exit the stitch by going out and up. Then again to the front, wrap, slide out, take it off, just like that. I'll show you one other way to combine the two stitches, which is seed stitch, and that one alternates in the middle of the row. So seed stitch, you would make your first stitch, and then bring the yarn to the front, and purl your second stitch. And bring the yarn to the back so it goes over the top between the needles. To the back, you're ready to knit, and to the front, you're ready to purl. And bring the yarn to the back, you're ready to knit. Bring the yarn to the front, you're ready to purl. Now I happen to have 6 stitches, which was kind of random. If I want to keep doing the seed stitch now, my next row would have to start with a purl to make a little checkerboard pattern. If you do an odd number of stitches, then every row can be knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, ending with a knit at the end, and it's a little easier, especially if you're new. So I hope that was helpful. Have fun!